Here comes Sims. Pedaling into the paint, leaning and hitting a 10-0 run to start this game for Indiana. And Minnesota wants a timeout. Caitlin Clark knows it.
What did Kelsey Mitchell say in the locker room after Indiana's third straight win that had her teammates buzzing? The Fever just knocked off the Lynx without 5 key players, including Caitlin Clark, and that moment perfectly summed up this team's mindset heading into the playoffs. Stay tuned because Mitchell's words may be the clearest glimpse yet into how the Fever see themselves, not as underdogs, but as contenders rewriting the script in 2025. If you're pumped up for the playoffs, comment "fired up for the Fever" down below. Let's go.
I know a lot of people will talk about Napheesa not playing, but I think they're really good with or without her. You know, they're just a really great basketball team. So I think it was a big win for us because they set the bar high standard wise. We know what to expect when it comes to Minnesota Lynx, and so I think going into the playoffs, it was big for us because being able to know guarding Courtney Williams, knowing that her thing is a pull-up, knowing that now instead of not knowing that, it's big for us because we give ourselves a chance. And if they are the standard, we get to see where we are.
Remember, this was a group that had dropped 4 of its previous 5 games, and at that point Indiana's playoff hopes looked like they were slipping away. Fans were questioning whether the Fever even had enough bodies to stay competitive, let alone stack wins against teams like the Lynx. The doubt was creeping in. The kind that makes an entire season, once filled with promise, feel like it's on the verge of dissolving right in front of everyone.
Fever done with the MVP, okay? Bow, bow, bow! Hell yeah. You already know what it is. Dubs in the chat, you already know what it is. You already know what it is. Let's go to the playoffs with some momentum, baby.
But this team didn't cave. Instead, they scrambled to reinvent themselves right in the middle of the season, with Stephanie White preaching a simple message for the players to hold on to: be where your feet are. That phrase carried meaning beyond the obvious, forcing every player to stop worrying about who wasn't on the court and instead refocus on who was available, what role they could play, and how they could impact each possession.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been impressed with these guys since even the offseason, really the ones that I was able to work out with in the offseason, is how hard they work. There's a work ethic and there's a work style, and to approach everything in the same way, to be so energetic, enthusiastic, and dedicated every day. And I felt that way in training camp too. There weren't any days where I had to bring that out of them. So I think it's the nature of the women that we brought into this organization to continue to just bust their butts and play hard.
That mentality showed up immediately against Minnesota. Indiana stormed out to a 10-0 lead, setting a tempo that stunned the Lynx. They weren't waiting around. They imposed their energy at both ends of the floor. Shots were falling, the defense was swarming, and suddenly the Fever had flipped the story. Instead of drowning in injuries, they were dictating the action. Veterans grabbed big rebounds, reserves dove on loose balls, and everyone bought into the idea that their best chance came from competing harder on every single play. It wasn't always pretty, but it was relentless, and that's the difference between a team surviving and a team actually winning. The payoff? That victory not only gave Indiana its first winning record since 2015, it proved resilience is now their identity. Injuries didn't define them, their response did. And while the blueprint was written collectively, it's been carried by individuals who elevated their games to new heights. None more than Kelsey Mitchell, whose historic season is reshaping the future of Fever basketball.
It's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get back up. And, these are things that you have to go through. I often say there's no substitute for experience, and the experience that these guys have had to have to continue to reinvent, to have to continue to find different ways to get back up, and to play through some different struggles is not just paying us dividends this season, but as far as what it's doing for our culture, it's going to pay dividends for many years to come.
With no Caitlin Clark on the floor, the biggest question was simple: who was going to step up and keep the Fever alive? This wasn't just about filling her stat line, it was about finding scoring, leadership, and energy from somewhere else. That's why the Lynx game was so eye-opening. It proved Indiana's depth isn't just surviving, it's thriving when the lights are brightest. Fans had every reason to worry. Without Clark and Sophie Cunningham, the offense looked like it could dry up fast. Those two bring the kind of shooting gravity that spacing depends on. But instead of stagnating, Indiana leaned into versatility. Players attacked mismatches, moved the ball with purpose, and trusted that the next teammate would make the right play. Suddenly, the question wasn't who could replace Clark and Cunningham, it was how many different players could rise at once.
I love y'all!
Aliyah Boston became more than just the anchor in the paint. She turned into the hub of Indiana's entire attack. She tied her own rebounding record, vacuuming up everything in sight, but it was her playmaking that changed the tone. Running offense from the post like a guard in a center's body, Boston forced Minnesota into impossible choices. Every touch on the block pulled an extra defender her way, and with each double came an open lane or a clean look for a shooter. Suddenly, the Fever weren't just surviving without Clark, they were dictating terms through Boston's dominance.
Only 8 teams have ever done that. 7 of them went on to win the title. As Boston gets free and lays it in.
She will be on my first team.
Boston in the paint, sneaks through 2 and lays it in.
Then there was Odyssey Sims, who reminded everyone she's still got plenty in the tank. Coming off the bench and dropping 15 points, she looked like she'd been waiting for the chance to prove herself again. After the game, she called it a fresh start, saying, "New season starts Sunday."
Here's Boston off the steal, coast to coast, and in for 2. Here comes Sims. A little hop. As she took it inside the arc. Boston able to finish, but she was getting hugged, but was persistent.
That wasn't just a catchy line. It summed up exactly the way Indiana has approached this stretch of basketball, as Sims brought a steadiness to the backcourt, managed possessions, and gave them a secondary playmaker that the Lynx never fully adjusted to, a performance that spoke volumes about both her preparation and the team's resilience in trusting her. And just as Minnesota tried clawing back into the game, Aerial Powers had her moment with back-to-back three-pointers that ripped through the net and silenced the Lynx's momentum, a sequence where you could feel the game shift right there.
Williams. Turner finds the cutter. Sims using the window on a really nice pass.
Those 2 shots felt like a dagger, not just because of their timing, but because of the confidence they showed, as Powers didn't hesitate, and by doing so, she gave her team breathing room during a critical stretch.
Playing in her 8th game with the Fever, in their ever-expanding roster because of their injuries. Williams went for the steal. Powers sticks the jumper from 3.
That was the clear side of the floor, and Natasha Howard read the defense beautifully.
Howard, good position on the interior. Draws 2, kicks it out. Powers, you bet! Back-to-back 3s from Aerial Powers. Caitlin Clark, euphoric on the bench.
Lexie Hull proved once again that she's more than a role player, as she was everywhere. Switching on defense, contesting shots against bigger forwards, and still finding ways to chip in offensively, the kind of versatility coaches love because her ability to guard multiple positions has become a backbone of the Fever's defense. And when you add her presence as a capable scorer who doesn't need set plays run for her, it's clear why she has become indispensable.
Mitchell draws 2 defenders, races away. Hull steps inside and flips it in. Really patient. Odyssey Sims with 13, Kelsey Mitchell with 12, Jessica Shepard with 12, Alana Smith with 11. Here's Hull, another.
Kelsey Mitchell.
Natasha Howard quietly pulled the front court together with her efficiency. She hit shots in rhythm, battled under the rim, and gave balance so Boston didn't have to do everything down low. Watching her work on the glass and stretch the floor showed exactly how much she stabilizes this roster, especially in games where rotations are shortened by necessity. By the final horn, the box score told the whole story: 5 players in double figures. That's not an accident. It's the mark of a group refusing to let one star define them. They're proving they can score from multiple angles, defend as a unit, and trust one another to deliver. And the best part? Even in street clothes, Caitlin Clark continues to be the heartbeat of the bench, lifting the energy, celebrating every play, and making sure her teammates feel her presence every single minute.
Tonight for Indiana, but then Boston gives it right back, and Howard cashes in
to perform like this, but they have 5 different players almost at all times who can bring the ball up the floor. Usually 4 or 5 were adept at making shots from deep. I mean, you just saw a big there creating her own look as well from Natasha Howard. Career high in terms of her field goal percentage, and you see her here, the little spin to the middle. That's a tough shot.
It wasn't just that Indiana pulled off a shorthanded win, it was the context behind it. Kelsey Mitchell has lived through the darkest years of the Fever rebuild, carrying the load during seasons where winning felt impossible and the franchise's future uncertain. So when this team, patched together without its biggest stars, delivered a statement victory, it wasn't just another notch in the standings. It was validation that the culture had shifted, that the years of frustration were giving way to resilience and belief. That's why when Mitchell spoke in the locker room, her words hit differently. They came from someone who had seen both the bottom and the climb, and her message carried the authority of experience and the emotion of a leader who finally sees her team becoming what she always believed it could be. Kelsey Mitchell isn't just shining this season, she's making history. For the first time in franchise history, the Fever have a player averaging over 20 points per game, and that player is Mitchell. It's more than just a number, it's a milestone that rewrites the record books for a team that has long lacked this level of offensive firepower. In a season where Indiana has finally broken through to its first winning record since 2015, Mitchell's consistency and scoring brilliance stand as one of the biggest reasons why, cementing her as the engine driving the Fever's resurgence.
You know, kind of all the other things like offensive rebounding that she can do.
Knocked away, Boston comes up with a steal. Here is Mitchell veering through the paint and lays it in.
She's so quick, and especially when she gets out in the open floor, you'll see her coming down. The quick left to right crossover just gets by. I thought she was sprinting. I didn't think she was lumbering.
It was a lumber sprint.
Up for the big girl.
Mitchell like a blur. That's a
The journey to Mitchell's historic season wasn't smooth. It was built under pressure. With Caitlin Clark sidelined and opposing defenses throwing every scheme imaginable at her, Mitchell could have been slowed or frustrated. Instead, she elevated her game. She embraced traps, double teams, and constant denials not by forcing bad shots, but by showing maturity, knowing when to attack, when to facilitate, and when to steady the offense. That growth transformed her from just a scorer into a true leader. She demanded the ball when Indiana needed a bucket, yet just as importantly, she trusted her teammates to step up in big moments. That balance of confidence and unselfishness created space for players like Sims, Powers, and Hull to thrive, because they knew Mitchell wasn't trying to win games alone. She was making everyone around her better.
Kelsey, how much pride do you take in the fact that you started in every game now for 2 straight years, and on top of that, you're now the points per game leader in franchise history?
Man, I don't want to sound cliche, but I'm never gonna give up. I'm never gonna, if I'm able, willingly, 2 feet, 2 legs, 2 arms to play the game, because a lot of people can't. I'm gonna play. It may not, fall my way all the time, but you never have to worry about me not being present, especially if I don't have anywhere else to be. So that's just what that is. I'm never gonna not play and compete. You're never not gonna see me sit out if I don't need to. And so it's just about staying. I've obviously having rhythm and being who I want to be, but I'm all about basketball when it comes to just finishing it out.
And then come the numbers. Career high averages across the board, capped by a franchise record for most points per game in a season. What makes it even more impressive is that she's doing it while constantly drawing the opponent's top defender, night after night. Take the Lynx game as proof. Even with defenders grabbing, bumping, and chasing her off every screen, Mitchell still put up 18 points while dictating the pace of play. That ability to not just score through pressure, but to control the flow of the game despite it, is the clearest sign of how far she's elevated her craft.
Up on that, Odyssey, you've played against Kelsey a lot, but now that you're her teammate, what stands out to you about her scoring and the way she goes about working on things like that?
Bucket, instant offense, try your best to keep her in front, Trap, that doesn't work. Hard head doesn't work. You know, you just gotta play as hard as you can just to really keep her in front of you. Like, seriously. I mean, a lot of people say, I mean, it's a fact, but you ask who's one of the toughest guards, who's one of the hardest guards to guard, she's definitely number one.
I appreciate that.
Hands down.
The organization has made it clear they see the magnitude of Mitchell's season, and they aren't leaving it up to chance. Rolling out an MVP campaign complete with graphics, highlights, and features designed to put her firmly in the spotlight. And truthfully, she's earned it. She's not just powering Indiana into the playoffs. She's established herself as the face of the franchise, the player whose impact is too big to ignore in the league-wide conversation.
Here's Mitchell, trying to find an angle, and does. Just serving it in with the left hand. Aerial Powers made a big impact off the bench in the first half. Here's Mitchell, open three. It's good.
So, what about those words in the locker room? This is what Mitchell told her teammates: "You've seen our growth." For simple words that resonated because they weren't about her. They were about the team, about a group that was counted out but learned to play together and refused to fold no matter who was missing. Those words capture the heart of this season for Indiana. A team not just surviving the chaos of injuries and doubt, but transforming it into proof that they're evolving into contenders, with Kelsey Mitchell as the voice anchoring their journey and reminding everyone how far they've come.
Kelsey Mitchell is a scorer. She has always been a scorer. For her to not just do what she does well and do it in an efficient manner, but then to take on playmaking abilities for her teammates, I think has really expanded her game a little bit and really showed what she's capable of doing. And by the way, we've had to put her on sometimes the best perimeter defenders or best perimeter offensive players, especially the ones that are in ball screens a lot. So we continue to put more on Kelsey Mitchell's plate, and she just continues to rise to the challenge. So I'm incredibly proud of her. You know, she's been through the ringer, and in this organization, and she deserves to continue to elevate her game in the way that she has, and under different circumstances. So I'm proud of her. She's carried us.
What happens when a team built for the future suddenly proves it's ready now? That's exactly what the Indiana Fever are showing. Their first winning record since 2015 isn't just a milestone, it's a glimpse at what's coming. They fought through injuries, reeled off 3 straight wins, secured a playoff push, and shattered old narratives, yet instead of treating that as the storybook finish, they see it as just the beginning. For most franchises, simply making the playoffs would be enough. For the Fever, it's only step 1. This season isn't the conclusion, it's the foundation of something much bigger taking shape.
That's not stuff you see on the scoreboard, and that's what everybody cares about, what's only on the scoreboard. But I think in order for us to be who we need to be for a playoff run, like the rebounding, knowing who we're guarding, like not having like live ball turnovers was kind of like, it was pivotal in that third quarter. And so we got gut checked because it could have easily flipped the other way. But I think you see our growth.
And while all of this is happening, Caitlin Clark hasn't faded into the background. She's on the bench every game in her warm-ups, locked in on every possession, talking with teammates, breaking down opponents, and embracing her role as both a supporter and a student of the game. She's preparing for her own return, but what she'll step back into next year is a team transformed, one with playoff experience, chemistry, and a real belief in who they are. The core is undeniable. Kelsey Mitchell shattering franchise history with the first 20-point scoring average in a season, Aliyah Boston owning the glass and breaking her own rebounding marks while dominating games like only elite centers can, and a bench that has found its voice with Odyssey Sims and Aerial Powers proving they can swing momentum in an instant. Suddenly, the Fever don't just look competitive, they look deeper, stronger, and more dangerous than they've been in years.
These last 3 games were pretty high-stakes games with playoffs on the line and whatnot. How much confidence does that give you going into the actual playoffs now?
I think it gives us a lot of confidence, knowing that we can meet the moment at times. You know, I think that, you know, when we get a chance to sort of reflect back, you know, it's how do we meet the moment in every game, as opposed to the ones where your back's against the wall. But every game is a back against the wall game now.
Coach Stephanie White deserves a lot of credit for this turnaround, because her standard over scoreboard mindset has reshaped the entire culture of the Fever, keeping the focus on playing to their own level instead of chasing single wins, and building a foundation where rookies and fill-in starters are gaining real playoff minutes that will pay off when Caitlin Clark returns. Every injury, lineup shuffle, and gut check moment has turned into preparation for something bigger, and suddenly this season, once projected as a setback, has become proof of what trust, resilience, and growth can create. The Fever have battled through doubt, tough losses, and missing key stars, only to emerge with their first winning record in nearly a decade and a chance to push Kelsey Mitchell's MVP campaign while chasing a playoff run few thought possible. And even though Clark hasn't been on the floor, her presence continues to fuel the dream of Indiana's rise. So if you're fired up for the playoffs, drop a fired up for the Fever in the comments, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment, because this story is only getting started.